Welcome, everybody. I'm seeing some folks joining, and I'm getting, all right, great. All right, it is working. The meeting's working. Technology is on our side. Share my screen. So we're going to give it 2 minutes or so to let people join. And for those of you who are on time, thank you. This is going to be a webinar covering a lot of topics, but namely AI, data, and talking a lot about messaging and how we think about really building sales teams in financial services almost end to end. It's a big topic, but we're going to cover a lot of the hot topics that are being talked about right now and that I think are impacting a lot of sales teams at large, particularly in financial services. If you have comments, questions, feedback during the presentation, please either chat it in and we will get to it towards the end or maybe even as part of the conversation. And then in the last section of the conversation today, we can actually open it up if folks want to participate and speak directly with any of the speakers. So let's give it just another 30, 45 seconds, let people dial in here. And then we will commence with using AI, data, and messaging to stay aligned and win in financial services. Give me just 30 more seconds. And welcome to those of you who have joined. I want to see everybody, but I also don't want you guys to have to see this off. Oh, yes. Just going to bring that back. Google Meet is fantastic on price, but it really, when it comes to webinars, I think Zoom meetings might take the cake. All right, everybody, welcome. Happy Thursday, the 24th of July. I hope you're having a great summer and everyone has caught up from their 4th of July summer break, which I feel like 80 to 90% of people took. And I know I am finally got my rhythm back from that time off. I'm excited to introduce you guys today to some really talented folks in financial services. I'll save that for just 1 or 2 more slides. And then for those of you who have just joined, we're going to cover maybe 30 to 45 minutes worth of content and conversation with our speakers. If you have questions, comments, feedback during the presentation, please chat it in. If we can get to it in real time, we certainly will. Otherwise, at the back end of the presentation, we can open it up for Q&A and even potentially get some participation from all of you. So welcome. I know quotes they've got a little bit of cheese factor. We've got at least one more inside of this presentation here for you guys today. But this one has been a quote that I've loved for a long time. And I think it actually fits in really well with what we're going to talk about today. So this idea that our thoughts become our words turn into our actions, and those actions become habits. They become things that we, do again and again. And then the idea that these habits can become our character and character becomes destiny. Everyone can build a quote. Everyone, I think for the most part can grasp this concept. And as it relates to our conversation, I think you could even swap character out with culture when you think about sales teams and the culture of an organization and the culture of a team. And so if you've got a team leader, the way that they are thinking about, the market and your emotions and how you guys are taking your solutions to market, how you meet with your customers and your prospects and how they lead those teams, those thoughts translate into their words, which become part of how the rest of the team is thinking, speaking, and acting, right? And those things become habits. Those habits become your culture. And so we've got a fantastic speaker with us today, Scott Ramey, who I'll introduce, who has spent decades at leading and building sales teams in financial services. He knows this stuff better than anyone I've really had the opportunity to partner with since we've been at PeopleLinx and in general. And he's going to be a pleasure to have participate. And I think Scott's going to be able to give us a lot of insights around how this idea of messaging, where it kind of comes from, how it plays into our sales process. And then we'll get into talking about our actions, our messaging, and how we get these things to stand up to build the right habits, build the right cultures for our sales teams. But I thought this was a great quote given the topic today and the direction that we're going to be taking this conversation. So with that, I want to introduce our speakers let's go least important to most important, and that's going to be Scott and Yannis tying for the top seat. But I'm Patrick Baynes. I'm the CEO at PeopleLinx. We're the ones hosting today's webinar, and really just excited to be here, share some of the insights from our partners, our clients. Scott Ramey, who we've been engaged with now for the last couple of months as a expert leader in sales and financial services. And then Yannis Koumantaros, who is the president of a couple of different financial services organizations, but also a PeopleLinx client, and has just a lot to share, a lot to say in general about what they have going on and a lot of the things that they're learning day in, day out with their businesses. So I'll let these guys introduce themselves. They'll do a much better job than I just did. And Scott, Yannis, if you wouldn't mind, jump in, say hello, tell people who you are and anything else you feel like sharing.
Yeah. So, hey, Patrick, thank you for having me. And it's good to be here with Yannis on this and with all of you. I'm excited about this conversation for a lot of reasons. Maybe the area that gives me fear and trepidation is the same reason why you all decided to join today, is like, how do we really truly distinguish ourselves in a very crowded market? Patrick referenced it, and if you follow me on LinkedIn or connect with me on LinkedIn, I spent nearly 3 decades in financial services, sales leadership, business development, even spent 3 years as an operation leader. And I don't know that I've seen a time where we've seen the pace of change and distractions at a higher level. And so I'm super excited to talk about how we can kind of really distinguish ourselves in today's environment, stand out, build trust, drive results. But maybe equally as excited about the fact that having been exposed now for, as Patrick referenced, 2 months, is that how PeopleLinx helps, and even helps me in my business now as a consultant that helps leaders and organizations resonate and build trust and drive results, but how PeopleLinx can help really cut through all the noise. And and again, not a pitch for the pitch sake, but a pitch in the sense that we are so distracted, and the velocity of information coming at us is so grand. PeopleLinx has helped me cut through that clutter with my business as 12 months into this thing. So I'm grateful for being here, and I'm grateful for my connection to PeopleLinx and Patrick.
Thank you, Scott. And I'll make sure we take care of you after the webinar for that plug. But I really liked what you said around the pace of change, and there's never been so much noise. It actually reminds me, I think the last chapter where this happened was like the emergence of social media and companies trying to get their arms around employees using it during work and what are they doing on LinkedIn. And that was probably the last milestone in terms of major disruption to workflows and everyone trying to figure something out. And I feel like AI and what we're up against now, I say what we have going for us almost. I feel like this is going to be an amazing asset for everybody. It trumps it 10x, so I'm excited to be here as well. And I'm glad that you can join us. Yannis, if you wouldn't mind, introduce yourself, please.
Thanks, Patrick and Scott. Great chatting with you. I find your comments tremendously insightful, and it's a pleasure to be here with two extremely stellar sales executives. So thank you for allowing me, Patrick, to join the two of you. I'm the managing director of Spectrum Pension Consultants and the co-founder of GROUPIRA. We do have a couple different family of companies, for lack of better words, but GROUPIRA was an IRA rollover company that we actually incubated within Spectrum and then spun it out. So they're 2 separate business entities now, but Spectrum is a 2nd generation family business. So like many people out there, I'm a family business owner and 2nd generation. And unfortunately, my dad, who founded the firm, passed away about 20 years ago now, after a rough battle with bladder cancer. So we had a decision to make, which was, do we try to take this thing over and try to take it to the next level, or do we fire sale it like a lot of family businesses when there's a tragedy that happens at the top? And so my brother Petros and I decided, well, let's see what we could do. So being that 2nd generation family business kind of owner executives, we've always been very interested on, to use a hockey analogy, where's the puck going, right? Not where it's been or where it is now, but where is it going? And I think sales has always been at the forefront of our industry, because when we did take that over from our dad, after a tragedy, we did have to really push for growth. We were very young as business executives, and that was back before it was cool to be a young CEO or a young executive team. Now I feel like there's all kinds of 20-year-olds running companies, and it's not a big deal. But back then, that was definitely a little different, especially when you're dealing with people's retirements. And that's what we do: 401ks, pension plans, and IRAs. So I'm really excited to share kind of what we've done and how we use PeopleLinx. But more importantly, where's the puck going? Where's that? How do you stay ahead as sales leaders and empower sales teams to sell the proper way in today's technologically advanced environment?
Yeah. And Yannis, I love what you said. And I think it also reminds me of why I asked you to be here, and I think why we even are engaged in the first place, which is you guys, that the puck analogy, right, is on point, but you're also in a place where I feel like you move much more quickly than traditional, mid to large size. The bigger you go, the slower they move. But you're someone, and your organizations are I think a great example of people who are not afraid to experiment, try new things. Yannis, I don't even think it's necessarily relevant to this conversation, but they're doing things with Bitcoin and retirement that is just like I haven't heard anyone else talk about, and the ways he's talking about it, and a lot of cool things happening there. But very forward-thinking, kind of quick-moving representative from financial services in Yannis, and then Scott, I'm sure could spend the rest of the hour telling us about all the roadblocks and barriers and things he runs into that anyone who's played in financial services is aware of. But that's not what we're here to talk about. So let's dive into the good stuff.
Patrick, could I just maybe set this for consideration as we go through this, because this is something I've been reflecting a lot on, and I was listening to the podcast All In as I was walking the other evening. With financial services, one of the first things you learn is about compound growth and the power of compounding. We're in an exponential world, and to try to get our arms around how we need to evolve and to go from good to great or from better to best, I think that's kind of really what this whole webinar is about, and what PeopleLinx can bring to the table, and the experiences that Yannis brings. So just something for us to consider. There's an old adage, what got you here won't get you any further. I think it's even greater than that as I reflect on it. I mean, this is exponential change, and it's creating so much noise and how we think about things going forward. So this is, I think this is really a great timing for this conversation.
It's spot on. And what got you here, for anybody in their current role, almost literally anybody, what got you to this place in your career is actually not going to be the same thing that's going to get you to the next decade. And I'm not referring to like the core skills that you've been developing, but the practices and the ways that we think about using technology and the ways you can leverage it. I mean, it is going to be we're all building out a new skill set, and the platforms are evolving. ChatGPT is month over month better, and that didn't happen with social media. I mean, social media got better here and there, and they got some other bells and whistles and things, but the capabilities that are rolling out right now you're right, they're exponential. It's compounding. It's crazy, and what's going to carry careers and teams and performance forward for the next decade is going to look a lot different. I'm interviewing right now, and I'm telling you, I'm interviewing folks that I can't believe are in the market, and AI is taking a lot of jobs. Like, teams are getting let go, and people are augmenting, in ways that they haven't before with technology. So it's exciting. And at the same time, I think it's something that we all are trying to stay, on top of and ahead of. And so we'll do what we can to share some of our learnings here with you guys today, and some frameworks and ways to think about it. And we have plenty of time to do so. So we got 45 minutes left on the clock. Again, if you have questions, comments, feedback, chat it in. But let's get this going. So this is exactly where, Scott, you were taking the conversation. I'll let everyone, ingest some of this content here, but, even messaging, right? Now I've got purview to sales messaging across literally hundreds of clients and teams in different industries. And the biggest theme I'm seeing around messaging is people don't have the longer your message is, the more it's focused, a lot of similar practices things we know, but the longer it is, the more or the less it's focused on the client, and the less relevant it is. All of that stuff you used to be able to get away with. You used to be able to get away with wordy messaging and, talking about your brand and why you guys were great. People don't have the time for it anymore. You have to break through the noise and to become more relevant. And I'm going to give a quick anecdote on AI generated insights. We uncovered about 2 or 3 months ago a best practice using AI to create more relevant messaging. And so imagine I'm working with GROUPIRA, right, as a client, which is a fact. Let's imagine that they're going out after plan sponsors in one category or another. Like, let's say, oh gosh, I don't know, Yannis, give me a category of client that you guys want to TPAs, or where give me an example. Who are you focused on now?
Yeah, I mean, B2B, a service provider, like a third-party administrator that kind of administers or helps plan sponsors run retirement plans, or even like a really large, S&P 500 type plan sponsor that might just need help cleaning up the employees they've laid off because AI has disrupted their business. Either one of those.
So pick, So one of those targets, right? Which I know GROUPIRA pretty well. And we've got the teams that we're working with, and we can understand their business. But how can I quickly get to understand what's going on in GROUPIRA's prospects, their target clients? What's going on in their mindset right now? What's going on in their calendar year? What's relevant to them, right? I would be scratching at my client to tell me prior to AI, or I'd be going out and I'd be doing research and I'd be doing guesswork. Well, you can go into ChatGPT right now and say, hey, of the S&P 500, who's done the most layoffs in the last 12 months? Of those companies, can you give me a sense of how big their layoffs are and what industry? It will be able to tell you what's going on, or just what's going on in their calendar year with plan sponsors, which for the larger companies, there tends to be a little bit of an RFP season coming up, right? And these are things that as a marketer, I don't always intuitively know, because these aren't my clients, but my clients' clients. And even my clients can't keep up with their clients' calendars, but AI can. So you can use it to uncover insights and things that we just would never have the capacity, the reach, or the knowledge base to do so. And so that's just kind of covering up on that top level of where, if you're struggling for messaging today and you want to get into the mind of your prospect, AI can help you. Tell it where you're going, who you're trying to reach out to, and see what's going on with them that time of year, or in that industry right now, or what events are coming up that they are attending. A lot of this stuff used to be laborious to find out. In fact, you'd have to go and, like I said, kind of scratch at it and piecemeal it together. So I don't know, Scott, Yannis, if any of you guys want to tackle another one of these, I can keep going. But this is a little bit of a look of kind of where we're at and some of the new opportunities. But I won't steal them all if you guys want to jump in a bit.
Yannis, do you want to jump in? I'm happy to jump in a couple comments.
Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I think so. We're going to be talking a lot about how do we attract the client on the front end, or have the prospect on the front end, and what's that messaging. And, I think just in terms of, as an entrepreneur now, like my ideal client, my ideal customer profile, or my avatar, and how do I really get clear about my message? I think that's an important step that PeopleLinx can definitely help with, and has helped me personally. I think the other part of this is that once we're sitting down with them, and we'll go into more, Patrick, is when we're sitting across from them, then how do we resonate at a different level to connect with them and build trust? I think inherently people today, I know inherently people today are more skeptical than they've ever been. And artificial intelligence is driving a different level of outreach and connection in a good way, but also brings some skepticism. So how do we, when we're sitting across from that ideal client or ideal customer, how do we then ensure that we're the right solution for them, the right group, the right entity, the right person, and connect with them at a different level? So I love what PeopleLinx brings to the table, and that proactive connection on the front end, to have the opportunity to sit down versus this shotgun approach that frankly I used to use, where I'd buy these services and I have all this data and I'd have to filter through it to figure out who I'm going to connect with and how I'm going to connect with them. You've helped streamline that process at a magnitude that I've never seen before. And then the important thing is, like, how do I convert them and build trust and connection and drive the result that I need to? So I love this, where this conversation is going.
Yeah, I agree completely. And then, this one, actually, this idea of data-driven coaching, I mean, there's been tools for a long time that are recording sales calls, or they can, analyze certain, patterns inside of data. But we just in the last month, a consultant we're working with, and I'm getting a little feedback. I don't know if anybody's got to mute that, but there's consultants teaching us around this idea of building your own AI repositories. So basically having your own almost like folders inside of, pick your tool, ChatGPT or Grok or whatever, and saving all of your, or uploading from whatever source, the call recordings or the transcripts from your Fathom recorders or from this, and then being able to dive in there and find patterns or anecdotes, or what are the common objections, what are the most often, questions asked the most often, or what are the ways that what are the ways that we've been able to get past that, and being able to pull from not just third party content, but literally the data that your team is sitting on today using AI, and to be able to coach with that. Yannis, anything you want to add to the slide before we skip?
Yeah, I think I just like narrative control. I think one of the things that PeopleLinx really helped GROUPIRA do is we have different verticals. We've got kind of like a voluntary IRA, and then we have like an automatic IRA. So we help plan sponsors, we help intermediaries, but we help really the end user, the kind of the participant, or we call them the member, find their money or whatnot with respects to like a 401k. And I remember when we got connected with Patrick and his team at PeopleLinx. We're a Microsoft shop, so we use all the Microsoft Office 365 suites, including Microsoft Copilot, which is their Chat GPT. I think it's actually twice as expensive monthly, so I think instead of $20, it's like $40. But basically, it's the cheapest assistant you could probably hire, as is Chat GPT. And I remember asking Microsoft Copilot, like, how can PeopleLinx help GROUPIRA? And it's kind of fascinating, and one of the things that I remember from that, I could probably do it right now and get the same answer, but it was essentially telling us how we had different messaging for the different verticals, and that they could really help personalize. So it's kind of the second bullet here and the fifth bullet on the right. You have to personalize at scale your messaging, but you also have to have narrative control. So, right, what I wouldn't want is for Patrick's team or PeopleLinx or my salespeople to approach one channel with the same messaging as the other channel, or one vertical with the same messaging as the other vertical, when they're completely different target markets, right? You don't go to an HR director to help clean up an S&P 500 company that just did massive layoffs, where that person might be next on the chopping block and they've had to lay off half their team anyways, with the same messaging that you would an intermediary who is dealing with customers that are experiencing layoffs. So, Patrick, that's something I think PeopleLinx really helped us realize, that you don't have to do that one at a time, but you can do it at scale. You can have it personalized. You can control the narrative without it sounding like a robot is doing it. And I think that's something that frustrated me as a business leader and executive, is I don't like getting sold to by robots. I mean, I want a human who understands the business. But again, if you can scale that messaging and have it be authentic, your salespeople are going to do a tremendous amount of growth work.
Yep. And I want to just touch on, I think the word scale is an interesting one, because people talk about, they use scale and it's going to be this massive level of increasing your numbers by thousands, right? And scale can mean, how do you double, triple down, quadruple down on sales activities that are working? How do you scale those up? And it can be just to the hundreds, right? It can be in batches, and that alone for a sales rep or a person to double or triple their level of output and so forth, that is scaling. And so good comments here, guys. And this is why we're here. A lot's changed. It's changing faster than ever. The stuff that we could get away with 10 years ago, 15 years ago, from an outbound perspective, business development practice perspective, it's not going to hold any water today, particularly even when you try to scale it. There is more noise. You have to be more relevant, more personal, find those relationships, build those relationships authentically. So let's keep it moving here, guys. So we know there's noise. The stakes are high. I mean, a lot of you guys are selling things that I don't even want to, imagine the value of an S&P 500 client to GROUPIRA when you can bring on one of those logos. But you're trying to keep up with all of these changes, all these things that are happening, and the systems and the processes that are, driving the operation. They might be, and it's funny because a lot of these things, they may actually work just fine right now with the team that's evolving with it. But what happens when you go to bring on that new hire, right? Are you going to now train somebody on an old process, on an old system that you have in place? And so we have to adapt our systems and our processes to keep up with the change and to achieve these goals, which is, this may be the last, cheesy quote I have on these slides, but we really do fall to the level of our systems and how we're doing things. And I run into this, right? When you bring on a new hire, it's like, now you look back at what is your process for doing a job, and is it a process from 2 years ago? Because if it is, chances are that candidate might even look at it and go, or that new hire look at it and go, about 5 of these steps I don't know that we need to do anymore, or shouldn't we be doing this way? And so it is time to update our systems. It's time to look at how we're doing things and how we can do them better, and we'll share more anecdotes and examples with you guys as we go here. So this is kind of a look at the agenda, what we're going to cover here over the next 20-30 minutes. And if you go back to the opening slide, your thoughts become your words, words become your message, become your actions, and so forth. And so, starting with kind of how we think about our message and what is our message, and how do we get that, how do we create alignment there and control the narrative so that we're all on the same page, but leading with our best foot forward. Where does AI and data come into play on this? And I can tell you guys, data has been a best friend for sales teams for a long time now. I think some people could challenge that and say that it's been one of the harder parts of sales is, data hygiene and CRM management, all that stuff. But the data that we've been gathering for years, we can tap into now in ways, HubSpot just announced about a month ago their ChatGPT integration. So if you're in sales, you don't have that headache now of digging through your CRM. You could call on ChatGPT, right? There's going to be a lot of different kind of efficiencies and advantages that come from this. And then we'll take a look at some of the work we've done with GROUPIRA as well. So we're going to take a look at some of these items. Guys, Scott, Yannis, anyone want to jump in on the agenda before I keep cruising?
Not specific to the agenda, but I think if I understand the audience that's joined us today, is that either high capacity sales leaders or business owners or both. And I'm just putting my hat on that I had on 14 months ago again, and putting myself in their shoes. There are so many things that you all manage on a day-to-day basis that has to feel overwhelming, and messaging and deciphering all the data, collaborating with marketing, managing up in the organization if you're not leading the organization, internal politics, keeping your team motivated, not to mention all the things we've already mentioned in terms of the pace of change and the complexity of what is today. I think that's the value of this conversation that we're having, is like, how do I cut through the clutter, the noise, and how do I simplify one very important thing, which is making sure my teams are sitting across from qualified candidates. And I just think back in terms of areas as a sales leader at Fortune 100 companies, if I had a solution that PeopleLinx brings to the table now, where I can ensure my team's getting in front of the right person at the right time, it's a really valuable tool. So I can't wait to, Patrick, for you to walk through how that process looks and feels, and Yannis and his experience with what he's experienced.
Cool, guys. Let's keep it going here. So, Scott, I think you touched on this a bit here. That there is more pressure than ever, and I feel like there's also some pressure that is a bit. I don't know if you want to call it like social pressure or something, right? Where it's not necessarily metrics driven, but it's how do you respond to a team that wants to use a new tool or has another idea, or feeling like you're falling behind while the rest of the market's innovating. And I'll be candid with everybody. About 2 years ago, I was invited to speak on AI, and I wasn't prepared. I mean, I declined it. I was like, I still don't know, right? I'm still figuring out. And that was 2 years ago. Now I feel like I'm in it on the field, got best practice. We've figured out a bunch of different ways that we can actually leverage it in our processes. But I felt pressure to be an AI expert 2 years ago, and it was 6 months out of the gate in terms of adoption. And I feel like these larger organizations, they got to be sweating bullets in the same way, right? I'm sure conference attendance has never been higher when people get a chance to jump in and find out what other folks have already figured out. But any kind of comments around the pressure that you're feeling, Yannis, or from your team, or Scott, anything else you guys want to add here before I move on?
I'll mention the sales team side. I mean, definitely our sales VPs are doing a lot more now. They're feeling more pressure. They have to communicate, twice as much for half as many opportunities. And the sales cycles have definitely gotten longer. I think, the doing nothing is actually the biggest competitor, if that kind of makes sense. So when you're trying to sell a prospect, maybe it used to be they're looking at 3 different vendors, and so you had a 33% chance, right? If there's 3 of you competing for the same business, now it feels like doing nothing is 50%, and then the 3 prospects are fighting over the remaining 50%, right? It's a completely different world, and you have to stay ahead of the curve, Patrick. And PeopleLinx has helped us, I think, increase the funnel. So that's a really good thing. We're targeting a larger funnel with consistent messaging, which has helped our sales VPs kind of double or triple their opportunities or at bats. And yeah, like one of the cool things about GROUPIRA and PeopleLinx is we are kind of small businesses, SMBs, and GROUPIRA is more on that fintech side. But if you think about it, I always say GROUPIRA is small, we're nimble, we can turn on a dime. And the big companies, they turn on $1.10. And what I mean by that is exactly what Patrick said. Patrick could be trying to sell PeopleLinx to an S&P 500 prospect, and it might take him 17 years to actually land the business because it goes through departments and authorizations and regulatory compliance and legal and contracting and all these different departments, and they're unable to make a decision. And so that's kind of where I remind my salespeople, hey, go get 1,000 50-person companies rather than one 50,000 person company, right? Like you can do both at the same time, but the amount of effort required to close that 50,000 person company versus 50 1,000 person companies is massive. And so you can kind of do them both, but you need a tool like PeopleLinx to really help put you in front of both those verticals.
Yeah. One thing I thought was interesting is like the work that folks have hopefully been doing over the last decade, like on the marketing side, to build out reputation, right? Like your external reputation as a company, and this could be your Google reviews or your Glassdoor reviews or this site or that site. People used to try to win, search results or be found and sort of have a little bit more control over how they were presented publicly. But, ChatGPT doesn't care, and it's going to read all of the data about a company. And if somebody's now looking for the right solution, the right rollover solution, or this solution or that solution, any of that reputation rolls in now to a very concise recommendation from ChatGPT. And so it's like there's so many angles that this can be impacting folks from as a consumer, as a buyer, right? So I think I just saw this today that like ChatGPT actually has plans to become the new internet. So like basically leapfrogging over the stuff that we know and think about today and being the way that we access information. So anyway, it's a lot, and yeah, let's break through some of the noise here. So I was just getting a little bit into like the role of AI and data. I feel like it's a great example of an ambiguous term, right? Like, what do people mean by data? Are they talking about prospect data? Are they talking about the information that exists about a company on the internet? Are they talking about the data that you have generated through various efforts, and now how do we analyze all of it? And so I shared an anecdote earlier around thinking about messaging and how we've been able to use AI to get in the minds of our clients, prospective clients, which is a big leap forward in terms of being able to think about what's going on in the mind of a persona, of a client, of an industry that, you know, is a stretch for us, especially as you trickle down into an organization where not everyone on, you know, the team is gonna have that background or have been to those conferences. So there's a lot of ways we can analyze it from that standpoint. You can also take, like, this is literally what we're looking at right now is a screenshot of a PeopleLinx dashboard. This same exact set of data here, all of it, even down to what's behind door number 1, can go right into a ChatGPT a chat and start to uncover patterns and what calls to action are getting the highest response rates, or what subject lines are getting the highest open rates. Things that maybe we could see at the surface, but when you get down into your second, third, fourth touches in a sequence and this audience versus that audience, it can be a lot to analyze, especially as you think about across teams and organizations and so forth. So a lot of room to leverage AI, not just in, you know, analyzing data but also getting to the right message and even with the data that you have, right? So one practice, this is, I mean, some of this stuff is embarrassing for me to share, but it's true, and I hope it's helpful for other folks. I took a target audience for a client. It was a new client, so it wasn't anything that, you know, we're bringing value versus like fixing mistakes. But we took their target audience and I plugged it into ChatGPT and I was like, hey, what titles might we be missing out of this? And it presented me with audiences and titles that I had not, I didn't have on the list, you know, that we weren't thinking of. And I kind of intuitively knew it, but I was able to enhance my targeting with ChatGPT's help. You know, and it's just about capacity, right? Like I'm clearly not the smartest guy on this webinar, which is fine, but I will never be able to compete with the knowledge base of ChatGPT and the things that it can bring to bear, nor could, you know, any human, right? Unless you're like a total savant type photographic memory who's ingested every piece of content and so forth. But it's incredibly powerful. And I would encourage everyone to look at not new ways that you can leverage these tools necessarily, but look at the existing challenges, the existing processes that you have in front of you, the things that you're already trying to do and do well. And then you don't even have to try to think of the solution yet. Go to ChatGPT and just ask what they would do. What kind of help can they offer you? And you'll get ideas. You'll get feedback. It's a fantastic thought partner. It's a great way to get your data, get better data out of the gate because you know what data to ask for, to analyze your data, to find the patterns more quickly, and all kinds of things. So a lot of opportunity to kind of realign or improve all of your practices. But I always say, like, don't go chasing waterfalls, you know, stick to the rivers and lakes that you're used to. I do that one just to make light of situations. But truly, I think if you're trying to get started in this arena, or you're looking for a way that you can start to leverage AI, look at what you're already doing and where it could potentially be enhanced, even just as a step in the process. And then you could build a new process or update your system around what you're learning. So this one's a little bit boring here, but this is what, for folks that don't have technology behind them or automation supporting them, or they're not running sophisticated, you know, sales outreach programs, this is what a average salesperson's week looks like, right? It's a lot of manual effort. You're really chasing people down, whether they're qualified or not, in terms of, are they interested, are they not interested? And we get what we get. Now, you know, there's nothing wrong with doing research and outreach, right? But when you start to bring technology and these systems and all of this to bear, it's a add-on, right? So it's not a stop doing this, now rely 100% on this, right? These two things come together, and they always have, right? The people who are great at, you know, like Scott Ramey, right? Scott's becoming, in his 14 months since leaving the corporate world, he's becoming quite the social media influencer, right? You check him out on LinkedIn.
But I get carried away.
But it's not that you're just some avatar out there, right? It's feeding into the real, it's aligned with your business, it's aligned with what you're doing, and these two things work together to amplify what you're doing, your message, your services, your community, engaging all of them. So it's the worlds have to work together, right? Or that's where the value comes in. And so,
hey, Patrick,
jump in.
Add something. I don't know how many of our audience members here, deal with RFPs or RFIs. I feel like, requests for information, requests for proposals are part of a lot of industries. Obviously, they're all over financial services. So both Scott and I have a massive amount of experience in that. And I definitely feel like in the old days, it was sort of like, who do you know? Like, do you know the lawyers? Do you know the law firm running the search, doing the contracting? And are you, in the Outlook group of their favorite people that get all the RFPs or are the, all the RFIs? And Patrick, to your point now, not only could you, tap into a database, with AI helping like PeopleLinx to say, show me every company that's out for RFI in this vertical or RFP and target marketing. It really gives the little guy the advantage to get into that, favorite food group basket that perhaps, before ChatGPT and before, the internet and AI really started to integrate, you would have never gotten those opportunities. So I do think it does give the small business, the SMBs, right, the small and medium-sized businesses, the ability to leverage AI, turning on a dime while the big guys turn on $1.10, and really inserting yourself into opportunities that maybe you never would have seen before.
Yep.
I agree. I was thinking about that as Patrick was talking about data and the importance of data. We've always had a bunch of data in my career. I'd had a ton of data. What I didn't actually have was a ton of actionable insights. And so PeopleLinx helps with that aspect. But even, gosh, Yannis, I was thinking about less than a year ago, you couldn't search for committee members easily, but now you can. I mean, you could do an easy search for an RFP, and through some really thoughtful, proactive marketing with the right target, the right message, which PeopleLinx helps you with, now you're in front of those people and they're starting to get to know you well before you actually sit down with them. And maybe if you made it to the first round or second round of a finals presentation. So it's really remarkable how far things have evolved in such a short period of time.
Yeah. And
I don't even do, sorry to interrupt, Patrick, just quickly. I don't even do really a whole lot of government contracting, because if you think about a 401k plan, that's a private sector thing. There's comparable plans, thrift savings, et cetera, pensions through the government. But you think about state, local government, or even federal government, that's an industry that I'm not really even in, because it's the private sector that does 401ks. Those are kind of like, 800-pound gorilla type legacy plans. But for all of you who do some kind of ancillary government contracting, whether that's, a construction company, your concrete, your pavements, I mean, anything really, if you think about getting those government jobs, all of that has to go through RFPs and search committees and whatnot. And so if you're in that world where you're looking for, prevailing wage type jobs, because you're in specialty contracting or you're doing government work at any level, getting your local, municipal, cities, county, state, federal, that's a huge opportunity, because again, those are the kind of jobs that in front of you, an in with somebody. So just something to think about for the audience.
Yep. And you guys reminded me of, we have a client on the prospect data front to go back to this, and using ChatGPT to do the same, to conquer the same challenges you're up against, right? To get help beyond what you can do. We have a client who was trying to target a certain network of financial advisors. Okay, but this particular network of financial advisors, they don't go by the main brand. Right. So they're kind of like you guys are going to, Scott and Yannis, I know you guys can find the better language for this, but they have like their own advisory firms. It's like Ramey Wealth Managers, LLC, but it's part of this larger network of advisors. And so the client's telling us, well, that's our target, but we can't get their contact information because we don't know who's in that network of advisors, because it's not available, because they don't actually identify as part of this larger brand. They all have their own individual brands. And like, it bothered me for like a week. And then I realized, let me just go ask ChatGPT. Well, turns out that this large brand, which has thousands of these advisors, under their own brands across the country, that company has created, they've spun up these local advisor directories as they look like they're third-party directories, but they're really just like lead funnels for their network of other advisors that are like selling their retirement, their financial services products. And so there were multiple of these databases exclusively with the exact target we needed, with even as far as a lot of their contact information on it. And it's been sitting there for decades. And so, I mean, I'm dealing with this massive, national brand telling me that this is one of their targets, but inside of all their expensive databases that they're subscribed to, which are multiple, that this data couldn't be gotten. And there it was, sort of staring us all in the face. But you kind of needed a ChatGPT to help you find it. So really interesting to just challenge it against the, or to use it against the challenges that we're already facing, like this, right? So
and Patrick, never underestimate, nor should our listeners or your clients or prospects underestimate the power of the nonprofit. You'd be shocked when you see like nonprofit boards that people are on. It's got some key member of the community who's maybe somebody you want to sell your product or services or solutions to. And those are really good websites to get access to people, where the nonprofit is listing the senior buyer of that S&P 500 company, right? So I totally agree with Patrick. In the old days, that would have taken, a research analyst 8 hours, trolling Google and the internets to all these nonprofit sites. And now it's just that quick.
Yeah. The chief marketing officer we hired at a decade ago, he got to us. We raised a bunch of money. We had a news article come out. He went in through the contact form of our website with a really nice note. And we ended up hiring this guy, and he's fantastic, still a good friend of mine. But he goes, when I want to find an opportunity, I look for a side door or a back door. I never go through the front door. And ChatGPT can show you the side doors and the back doors and all the different ways to at scale, right? It can help you find a lot of the answers indirectly, right? We're so used to kind of going to the database to find something. Well, it's changing, right? We don't. The front door is not the same. It's AI now. So we have a little crunch on time here. So I'm not going to bore you guys with more around our systematic approach and the ways that we're approaching a lot of these sales activities. But I want to start to move into some of what we've been talking about already around how AI is already starting to enhance sales motions. We talked about targeting and this ability right on point, right on the transition for what we were just talking about, but that we can actually refine our go-to-market targets better than we ever have before. Even if you wanted to take a list of, like, let's say, inside of a PeopleLinx dashboard, I can pull a report of all your responses and I'll have all the data on those prospects. Well, I can now quickly get an analysis of, like, hey, 75% of your best responses came in from the people at the VP level or higher, or it came from people that were in these companies with less than 50 employees. And then the next up was the groups with 200 to 5, and you can get those answers more quickly to figure out where you want to double down and move forward on. I actually love this idea of mindset as part of this, because, if you're not if you haven't found your first aha moment or been, proven, if you haven't firsthand seen AI do something impactful for your workflow to find a customer, to improve a message, to, give you some insight. If you haven't done that yet, your mindset might still be in the, it might still be in 2023, right? Or 2022, before, when you had to kind of go it alone or, reach out to someone else for help. But we can prompt AI in ways, and if you can start to wrap your mindset around that, and I think the folks that have already uncovered the value are more and more inclined to lean into these things, and lean into them harder. Like I developed my first super prompt ever about a week ago. And if you haven't done a super prompt yet, it's ask AI to help you. It can devour manual processes with a super prompt. Super intelligence and some of those things we were just talking about around, trends and what's going on in your buyer's mindset. Messaging and objection handling, that's a great way to start to dig into patterns, find out what is the market saying. I mean, I recorded all of my calls when Fathom came out 2 years ago, but I didn't do anything with them really. Now I will not let Fathom off of a call, off of any meeting, because if I want to write a really nice follow-up email, but I don't want to spend 10 or 15 minutes doing it, I take that transcript, I put it into ChatGPT, and I say, hey, can you give me a really concise follow-up email on everything we talked about? Boom. Guys, anything else you want to add to where AI is already increasing or enhancing some sales motions before
I would just say around mindset and messaging, I mean, AI is a game changer, an absolute game changer. When I work with clients and think about how we structure the message, especially to bring clarity to the messaging around read the moment, knowing your audience, and structure your story, the 3 steps I take with my clients, you're such at an unfair advantage than back in the day. You can know so much about the potential concerns and issues of the prospect or the organization that you're calling on. And it's so much easier to access that information. So you go from this scarcity mindset, like I'm uncertain, I'm fearful, I have anxiety, I have concern, to going in and sitting down from them, to being equipped to start to already anticipate the objections you're going to get based upon themes and considerations and, like organizations. So I can't agree with you more, Patrick. These are things that as sales leaders and as sales professionals, we have to take into account.
Yeah.
I would just add one thing from a coaching perspective, right? I do a lot of with my sales VPs about, why did we not land that deal, or you lost a prospect, and, hey, you learn more from the clients that say no. And I definitely think that, the AI portion of our industry can really help with like coaching when you lose a deal. I mean, you always kind of think like, why did I lose that deal? And doing those deep dives, sometimes you go look at the company and the company's, losing clients right there. Or you when you actually do that post-mortem, and I'm coaching my sales VPs on the deals we didn't get, you start to realize that, there was probably environmental issues that stopped that deal from going forward, not necessarily the sales professional's lack of clarity or messaging or whatnot. And I think that, the sales directors and managers have to do more now to make sure that in this kind of world where everything's available, that you really do help on your sales VP stay focused on the deals they didn't land, because sometimes it's factors that are way outside their control, and they really need to just move on to the next deal.
Yeah, and I actually think so. I'm going to challenge you a little bit on that, Yannis. Yes, they do need to move on to the next deal. Clearing out my pipeline is oftentimes like a big step towards finding the next customer, because I'm spending time on things that aren't moving forward. But when you lose a customer, when someone says no, right, like you have almost nothing to lose at that point. Right now, you don't want to like do brand damage or anything, but if you can find out why they said no, oftentimes that may lead you back into an opportunity. And so, when you lose a deal, even if it's not the sales VP or if it's someone else, to find out why, right? Like you've got nothing to lose now. So find out why they said no, reach out, like just like when you lose a client, but if you lose a prospect, if you don't know why, if you don't understand why, it's a worthy journey to dig in there and see what actually cost you the deal. And who knows, you may come out of it and they might say, well, it's price. Oh, well, we can work with you on price. Or it's timing. Okay, well, let's work on timing. Or we're going with a competitor. They got us a deal on a pilot. Okay, well, why don't we talk 2/3 of the way through that pilot, right? So there are some things you can do when you lose a deal, I think, that are best practice, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Scott, I'll let you lead us off here on some of what you're talking about.
Well, I think I referenced this earlier, just in terms of pace of change and general angst and progress that we're seeing as sales leaders and organizations. And so I kind of think about this in terms of clarity, tone, and connection. And once we are sitting across from that client, how are we resonating at a higher level? I mentioned at the outset that that's where I work with sales and leaders to resonate, but to me, it's really about building trust, connection, and driving results. And we look at like the difference between from the good and the great is they usually think about it in terms of 20% of your sales organization is driving 80% of your results. Why? And what I've noticed and experienced over the last 20 years is that when we really start to unpack that, it's almost as simple as the person just resonates at a higher level. And so they're grounded when it matters the most. They align their message. And I think about how you can multiply that in your organization, kind of this concept of one voice, many echoes, that the message across the organization is consistent. But maybe more importantly is that when they show up, the individuals aren't in a state of scarcity, they're in a state of abundance because they've done the work, that they're sitting across from a qualified candidate, not somebody that just is kind of a shot in the dark. And I think that's where what I've experienced with PeopleLinx is that I'm in front of more qualified buyers because we've done the work through PeopleLinx, utilizing the different capabilities in artificial intelligence. And then as a result, I'm also more prepared to make sure I'm on target with my message because of artificial intelligence, whether it be Grok or ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever resource I may use in that moment. So but it is to me about how are we resonating. And, step one is getting in front of the right people. And then when you're in front of them, it's increasing your percentage to close because you're more effective and you're connecting, you're more aware of what's happening. And I think that's really, it's an art. We're talking science mostly today, but this is the art. And this is what I've seen in my career from good to great, from great leaders to good leaders, from great salespeople to good salespeople.
Yeah. And you can't have the art without the science. You can't be a good writer if you don't know, grammar and punctuation and all of that, right? You can't paint a picture if you don't know how colors mix and
I think of it like fly fishing, Patrick. I was in Colorado last week fly fishing with my friend, and I could have the right gear, the right weight rod, the right line, the right tippet, the right fly. But if I don't understand the art of where to place that fly so that trout comes out and sees it and wants to attack it, it's the same thing. I mean, we've got to really get more deliberate, intentional about ensuring that we've upskilled our sales force in a way that not only is the message right, but the way in which we deliver the message and how it resonates has to be improved because of everything that everyone is experiencing around the distraction, the anxiety, the pace of change. I mean, there's so many elements out of our control. And so when you have that moment, you need to make it count.
So I have 3 minutes left on the clock here. And I know we all have, this is like lunch hour for a lot of folks. Yannis, I think maybe breakfast over there, getting out of brunch. But we've had the pleasure of working with GROUPIRA for the last year or so, and been able to take them from a lot of manual sales activity, moving them through kind of automation into a world where really this is, to go back to the slide I skipped earlier, where this consultant I worked with early on in my career said, if you can draw a box around something, someone else should do it. And that's a lot of what is happening for sales reps today without these things behind them. They're doing things that can not only someone else could do, but a tool could do, and automation can do it. Now, it's not just about quantity, it's about quality and how you do it right, and do it well and measure it and make sure that that's the case. But really, this stuff doesn't need to be where your team is spending their time. Let's move folks into more valuable resources or more valuable uses of our resources. And there's a little bit here on GROUPIRA. I don't think we're going to have time for questions. You guys have been very generous in terms of plugging PeopleLinx. Thank you. That was not the purpose of today's call for anyone who's been on, but these guys are close to the company, which is why I have them here. So just guys, some next steps. We'll share these slides. We'll share the recording. We'll publish a lot of this. If you have questions, connect with Scott, connect with Yannis, connect with me if you would like. Reach out to us, and there's a chat on LinkedIn from today's conversation. Scott, Yannis, I just want to say thank you both very, very much for being here. Trying to be respectful of time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.